now with the opening prayers. So first I'm going to read in English and you can listen. Then together we will chant in the Tibetan. All mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in a state of the most perfect and precious awakening. Thus, until I achieve awakening, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until awakening is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all migratory beings. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. This ground sprinkled with scented waters and strewn with flowers, adorned with the supreme mountain, 4 continents, sun and moon, I hold in mind as a Buddha land and offer it. May all migratory beings experience such a pure land. Nala Dawa Jebe Dra Nopar Jebe Gek Darba Dan Tamje Gembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Tam Jegi Su Jebe Mananga Dan Nyambe Senjen Tamje Dewa Dan Den Dungyal Dan Der Nedu Lana Mepa Yang Dabra Zobe Chanju Rinpoche Tobara Dala Dawa Jebe Dra Nopar Jebe Gek Darba Dan Tamje Gembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Tam Jegi Su Jebe Mananga Dan Nyambe Senjen Tamje Dewa Dan Den Dungyal Dan Nedu Lana Mebaya Dabra Zobe Chanju Rinpoche Dobra Dala Dawa Jebe Dra Nopar Jebe Ge Tarba Dan Tamje Gembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Tam Jegi Su Jebe Mananga Dan Nyambe Senjen Tamje Dewa Dan De Dunya Dan De Nedu Lana Mebaya Dabra Zobe Chanju Rinpoche Dobra De Zama Gege Bardu Lunga Yisum Gewala Go Marshe Bardu Lunga Yisum Gewala Go De Dereng Ne Sunte Nima Santa Samgi Bardu Lunga Yisum Gewala Go Zangye Jodang Soki Jonamla Chanchu Bardu Dane Gyabsu Je Dage Jinsu Gebe Sonangke Drola Penche Sangye Dubra Ju Sangye Jodang Soki Jonamla Chanchu Bardu Dane Gyabsu Je Dage Jinsu Gebe Sonangke Drola Penche Sangye Dubra Ju Sangye Jodang Soki Jonamla Chanju Bardu Dani Gyabsu Ji Dagi Jinsu Gibe Sonangki Rula Penche Sanje Drubra Ju Nangka Dang Nyampe Senjen Tamje Dewa Dang Dewe Gindan Dempra Gyurji Dungyao Dang Dungyao Gi Gyudan Dreva Gyurji Dungyao Mepe Dewa Dangme Dreva Gyurji Niling Chadang Nidang Drawe Dang Nyomla Nebra Gyurji Ma Nangka Dang Nyampe Senjen Tamje Dewa Dang Dewe Gindan Dempra Gyurji Dungyao Dang Dunya Gi Gyudan Dreva Gyurji Dunga Mepe Dewa Dhammi Dreva Gyurji Niling Chadang Nidang Drawe Dang Nyomla Nebra Gyurji Ma Gadang Nyampe Senchen Tamche Dewa Dang Dewen Gindan Dembra Girji Dungyao Dang Dungyao Gi Gyodang Drawa Girji Dungyao Mepe Dewa Dame Drawa Girji Nering Chadang Nidang Drawa Danyong La Nebra Girji Poju Jushing Meto Drap Rira Linshi Ninde Genpa De Sanje Shingla Mekte Bowa Ye Roko Namshin Namde Shindu Chopra Shu Om Guru Deva Tha Gini Rana Mandala Prati Jaso. Now to the main practice. Again, first listen to the English. To you, 3 jewels and 3 roots, all you sources of refuge, I go for refuge. To establish all migratory beings as Buddhas, I give rise to supreme bodhicitta. To the 3 jewels I go for refuge, I confess each misdeed and non-virtue, and rejoice in the virtue of migratory beings. I will also be mindful of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly, I go for refuge until awakening is reached. To fully accomplish the benefit of both self and other, I generate the awakening mind. Having generated supreme awakened mind, I will serve all sentient beings and delightfully engage in the supreme deeds of the Bodhisattvas. For the benefit of migratory beings, may I accomplish Buddhahood. Namo Kunjo Sundang Tsawa Tsu Gyane Namla Gyabsu Ji Drogun Sangye Lago Ji Changchu Chokdu Semge Do Namo Kunjo Sundang Tsawa Tsu Gyane Namla Gyabsu Ji Drogun Sangye Lago Ji Changchu Chokdu Semge Do Namo Kunjo Sundang Tsawa Tsu Kyamne Namla Gyabsu Ji Drogun Sangye Lago Jir Changchu Chodu Semgye Do Gunjo Sumla Dagyab Ji Tingpa Mige Sosor Sha Drove Gela Jeyira Sangye Changchu Yegi Sun Sangye Chodang Sochola Changchu Bardu Dagyab Ji Ranchen Duni Rabdu Jir Changchu Semni Kebargi Changchu Jogi Semni Gegi Ne Semchen Tamche Dagi Dundu Ni Changchu Jojo Iwon Jebargi Trola Penchir Sangye Drubra Shu. So just a few words about these 2 sections here, the refuge and bodhicitta. So in the refuge section, it says, to the 3 jewels and the 3 roots, all you who are sources of refuge, I go for refuge. Refuge here, it's a peculiar Buddhist English, I suppose. This is in Tibetan, Kyabdro, refuge. I think if we translate from the Tibetan, it has more the connotation of like protection. So refuge in the sense of protection. Like I go to you because I know you can protect me. Okay? So protect me from what? Protect me from the causes of suffering, and protect me from, of course, suffering. They said, bodhisattva, ordinary sentient beings are afraid of results, whereas bodhisattvas are afraid of causes. So often, we don't think about taking refuge. We don't think about needing protection until, right? Suffering has manifested. Suffering has turned up on the front door. And then it's like we start running around like a headless chicken, right? Before this pandemic, before COVID-19, yeah, everything is fine, And then, all right. And then so now, right, maybe also nothing else to do. Oh, this is going on 3 times a week. I'll fill it with this. But only when suffering has manifested. So we are afraid of the results. But bodhisattvas, those who can see clearer, they can see that suffering turns up because there were causes. And so bodhisattvas are afraid of the causes. Ordinary beings like you and me, we are afraid of the results. So protection that we are seeking from the 3 jewels and the 3 roots is the protection from suffering and the causes of suffering. So then looking around, we want to see, who can actually give this kind of protection. So in the sutras, it says, the mountains cannot give you this protection. The rivers cannot give you this protection. Your father cannot give you this protection. Your mother cannot give you this protection. The mightiest and most powerful gods, goddesses, and spirits cannot give you this protection. Because all these that we habitually go to for protection. So the mighty gods of the world are fame, praise, pleasure, gain. These are the mighty gods of our world. Yeah. Amazon, Facebook, Democratic, Republican, in the United States, independent, cannot give you protection from suffering and the causes of suffering. Temporary relief, lots of possibilities. Back to Amazon, 1 click, 1 relief, 2 clicks, 2 relief, 3 clicks, 3 relief. And then too many clicks, then your bank account also got relieved. Then another kind of suffering arises. Now need to work harder so that you can continue clicking, so that you can scratch again, Scratch, scratch, scratch. Yeah. The problem with scratching is the more you scratch, the more raw it gets. And then before long, blood turns up. So temporary relief from suffering, we are all quite used to. I am very expert in that area. But now we say, I go to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the 3 jewels, and then I go to the 3 roots, which is the Guru, the Idam, and the Dharmapalas and Dakinis. So the 3 jewels, I think you are quite familiar, because in all Buddhist systems, in all Buddhist traditions across the Buddhist world, from South Asia, where Buddha appeared and Buddhism developed, all the way to North Asia, to Northeast Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, all these Buddhist cultures, following different ancient traditions, they all have the same understanding of the 3 jewels. The Buddha jewel, the original teacher, the inspiration, the source of all this wisdom, which is contained in the Dharma, the collection of teachings, and the teachings that give rise to, more importantly, the realization of the way things are, Dharma in this ultimate sense. Sangha, those who follow these dharmas, apply the dharma, actualize the dharma in their lives. Right? This is the noble Sangha. So we go to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha for guidance, right? For protection, for safe direction. Sometimes has also been translated as that, as in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. How do they protect? They protect by giving a safe direction. Ultimately, that's the real protection that they give. It's not that they can, like, stretch out their hands and scoop us up and then put us in, the Pure Lands in the Buddha heavens. Oh, now immune from suffering. We do wish that they could do that, Then it's a lot easier. Sometime back, somebody in the context of discussion about science and Buddhism, science, technology and Buddhism, and somebody asked, one of these doctors, brilliant minds, maybe on a whim, just to see what he will say, asked His Holiness the Dalai Lama during one of these dialogues and said, with all the advances of modern science and everything, if one day scientists can discover, right, a pill that will cure this ignorance that you talk about, this ignorance the Buddha taught that lies at the root of all suffering, what do you think? What do you think? Do you think that this can happen? And what do you think about this? And apparently His Holiness Dalai Lama says, well, it'll be very good if they discover that, because, I will be the first to take it. So very honest answer, like, yeah, if that pill can solve it, I don't need to do all these practices. Like, we're not like, doing the practice because somehow we are glutton for, practice. Although practice is not torture by any means, but some days it feels like it's torture, right? And you're like, if only there's this one pill, So if only Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all these great beings, the three jewels, the three roots, if only they can just come down and scoop us all up and take us there. That kind of protection, I so wish they would do for us. In that case, wrong spiritual system. Try some other system that do promise things like that. Of course, we say cannot be delivered. Can promise, cannot deliver, not possible. Here, the Dalai Lama saying that, it's because I'm pretty sure he's also saying, actually, not possible. But if that was possible, yeah, of course, because what we want is the soonest, the quickest, the most efficient way to end suffering and the causes of suffering, not only for self, but also for others. And so whatever the quickest way is, not so much out of laziness, not so much out of like, not wanting to do the work, because sometimes quickest also means most demanding, right? Like the quickest way to get from here to somewhere else, right, involves great risks. Flying a plane, I mean, not to scare any of you, I mean, it's serious stuff, It's serious stuff, yeah. Because, I mean, as you can see, like even if you bicycle there or skateboard there or drive there, even if there's an accident, the numbers involved are very small. But if there's a 747, there's an accident involved, almost always we know what the result is. So the quickest way. So here the quickest way, we say, is actually a way that involves the Vajrayana level. involves the Vajrayana level. Why I say this is because superficially you hear people saying, I practice Vajrayana, I practice Vajrayana, I practice Vajrayana. But actually from within the system that we have in Tibetan Buddhism, as well as, of course, Buddhism, the same flavor, the same style that also exists in Bhutan, Bhutanese Buddhism, Mongolian Buddhism. So in this particular form of Buddhism that has developed in the Himalayan region, and then from there spreading to other regions, it came from India, of course. So it developed in India. So what His Holiness the Dalai Lama calls the Nalanda tradition. In this system, Vajrayana is practiced as one of three elements, which includes the Mahayana as well as what's known as the Hinayana, the three yanas. The three yanas are not here, in this case, they are not seen as three ways of getting there, but rather they are seen as three components of the one way to swift and complete awakening. Swift, fast, quick, and complete awakening. It's a system that unites the three yanas: Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana. Just as a footnote, please leave Theravada Buddhism out of this formula. Please leave Chinese Buddhism out of this formula. Please leave Japanese Buddhism out of this formula, because they are not exact match, you know. Sometimes I think people make that mistake, especially in areas where all these forms of Buddhism are available. So I know this quite well growing up in Southeast Asia, where we have all these different forms of Buddhism, where no one form or one system kind of dominates the area, and there are all these different forms. Then when Tibetan Buddhism arrives and we hear these terms Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, then we superficially think, oh, Hinayana, oh, that is just an ancient way to talk about Theravada. But in my opinion, and you can investigate this yourself, Theravada is its own system, its own way of talking about the path. And even in Theravada system, there is a discussion of the Bodhisattva path. But by definition, Hinayana doesn't talk about the Bodhisattva path. You see? So it's a confusion of categories. And we cannot, substitute this term Hinayana in the Tibetan system and what is involved in the Hinayana. We cannot substitute it with Theravada. They are different things. Apples and oranges, both fruits. At least not like, apples and tables. So not that different, but nonetheless, apples and oranges. Yeah? So anyway, that's just a footnote. So in the Tibetan system, Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana are not three possibilities, but rather they are practiced together as blended together as three important elements whereby Atisha says, Lord Atisha says, externally, the way you carry yourself in the world, the way you interact with people, you should follow all the careful prescriptions given in the Hinayana about how to conduct yourself. Then, as you go about doing that, your inner motivation should always be motivated by the Mahayana teachings about benefiting others, putting others before yourself, but keep that in your heart. In other words, it's sort of saying, don't advertise, your Mahayana motivation, because it could bring trouble, Immediately, I can say, it might bring trouble in the form of, oh, you say you're practicing altruistic mind? Let me see if you're really altruistic or not. People will come and test you, And altruism should not be, paraded around. So Atisha says, inward, you practice love and compassion, a commitment to waking up to become Buddha for the sake of all beings and not just for myself. So that's the inner. You carry that. Then on the secret level, the innermost, secret here means innermost level. From the secret level, you have to maintain the Vajrayana view. The Vajrayana view is, everything is innately pristine, fundamentally empty, but yet clearly appearing, and that everything is interdependently arisen, illusory-like. But in the midst of all these illusory-like experiences, I'm committed to working for the happiness of all. And to show that example, I will conduct myself in ways that will not turn people off, that can inspire people to turn towards the Dharma. So in this way, the three yanas is one example. How the three yanas, how the principle of the three yanas turns up in different practices, different contexts within the system of Tibetan, Himalayan, Bhutanese, Mongolian Buddhism. It turns up again and again. This is one example in terms of how externally we carry ourselves according to all the careful prescriptions and proscriptions that you find on the Hinayana level. All very detailed as well as very insightful sort of do's and don'ts that Buddha Shakyamuni gave very carefully. Then the Mahayana motivation, then the Vajrayana view, Vajrayana understanding. So practicing this, then from within Vajrayana, there is this thing called the three roots, which is really why we're talking about this. The three roots, we're still in this refuge. The three roots here is Guru, Idam, Dharmapalas, and Dakinis. Idam is a Tibetan word. The first Guru is a Sanskrit. I just use Idam. If literally you want to use the Sanskrit, and not so commonly heard, is the Ishta Devata. Ishta Devata is the Sanskrit. Anyway, the first Guru or Lama. Here we're not talking about, somebody who is dressed like this. Oh, have a certain look. Oh, those are lamas. We're not talking about lamas in that sense. Here, this is the sublime spiritual guide that is the source of the root in that sense, source. That is the source of blessings. Blessings here is defined as the blessing of empowerment, of ripening our potential. That's what empowerment does. It ripens our potential to be Buddha. So the Guru can do that, can help us to ripen our innate potentials. Then the Guru is also the one that gives blessings in the form of what we call the oral transmission, right? Giving the continuity of these practices in the form of oral transmission. Then, related to this is the third, which is practical instructions. how to practice this meditation, how to practice that vow, all these instructions. So Wang, Lung, and Tri in Tibetan. So the guru principally is a source of blessings because he, she, they are able to give these three forms of blessings, which you need if you are going to practice Vajrayana methods. Idam or Ishta Devata is one's chosen Buddha figure. It could be one, it could be many, actually. Practically speaking, it often is many. So the Ishta Devata, or the chosen meditation deity, now in this case of this program, is Avalokiteshvara. So Avalokiteshvara is a Buddha figure. A Buddha figure that has achieved complete awakening, that somehow this Buddha's activities is particularly evokes love and compassion within us. So then he's said to be the Buddha of love and compassion. But it's not like, different Buddhas specialize in different things. And some Buddhas have this and some Buddhas do not have that. That's not what it means, Any Buddha, any awakened being has the complete qualities of any other awakened beings. In that sense, they are all one. Not one in the monotheistic sense of one, as in they all have the same qualities. But Avalokiteshvara in this case has a special connection to us that somehow allows us to more easily bring up the Buddha qualities of love and compassion. So the Ishta Devata, from one perspective, is a powerful being, a Buddha who has completely achieved this state of liberation and freedom and power, and therefore can guide us. But in the Vajrayana context, in this context, even more important than that is they become a method for us to achieve the same result. So when we do this practice, as you already know, and we have done this, the last few sessions, we're not even so much praying and asking Avalokiteshvara to scoop us out of suffering and put us in the place beyond suffering. We are saying, I am coming to you for protection, for safe direction, for relief from both temporary and ultimate suffering. But in coming to you, may I become like you. May I become like you. That the only real way to reach Avalokiteshvara is to become Avalokiteshvara-like. May I become like you. So Ishta Devata functions in this way. Idam functions in this way. An etymology of idam is I is like mind, dam is to like protect, to bind the mind. Here binding or bondage here in this context has a good connotation, as it bounds, it binds, it brings together our ordinary mind with Avalokiteshvara's all-knowing mind and all-pervading, all-knowing wisdom and all-pervading compassion, to bind these together. So that is idam. Dakinis Dharmapalas, these are powerful beings who are bodhisattvas of advanced level, but they manifest in a more unpredictable way, in a way, They can even manifest superficially in ways that if we don't know how to recognize, we think this is chaos. But actually, this chaos, if we understand what is really going on, we will see, oh, these are actually my helpers. This is the third root.
So the second root, the Ishta Devata, is the root of accomplishments, attainments. Finally, attaining Buddhahood, it's through applying, through the path of relating to Idam, relating to the Ishta Devata. Then the third root is the root of activities, the root of movement, the root of supportive stirring up of things. Supportive stirring up of situations so that we can more quickly work through all the afflictive emotions and remove them. So iconographically, ritually, dakas, dakinis, dharmapalas, they are often painted as very fearsome, sometimes very seductive, sometimes very fearsome. So evoking kind of like, fear and hope, something very seductive. You're like, oh, I wish I can get closer. Then something very kind of like scary, very, you're not sure, then there's fear. But here, if you recognize the true identity of what is stirring up this hope and fear, you will understand that, oh, they are actually here to help. So let me not squander away this opportunity. And let me work through this and become clearer, coming out from the other side. These are dakinis, these are dharmapalas. This is the third root. So if you look closer, right, these three roots are in fact no different from the three jewels. The guru is Buddha personified, personalized. The idam, the ishta devata, is a special kind of dharma that we work with, we apply, we embody, quite literally embodying the dharma. Right? 7 Avalokiteshvaras, right, in this practice. The central one, I said, is absolute bodhicitta. The 6 that manifest and sits around this central is relative bodhicitta. That is quite literally embodying the dharma. So the second root is none other than dharma. The third root, right, sangha, is none other than the sangha jewel. The sangha jewel are those who have applied the dharma, achieve realizations, and can guide us. So on the level of speaking of the third jewel, sangha, that sangha, we often imagine them to be more supportive in the sense of like, in a more elementary sense of being supportive. Whereas dakinis and dharmapalas in the Vajrayana context, their support can come in ways that we don't recognize initially. So it takes more skill to handle that kind of support, actually. Yeah. So this is the three roots. So then this refuge prayer says, what are we practicing? We're practicing supreme bodhicitta. Bodhicitta in the two aspects of absolute and relative. Then the next page, second page, it says, right? To the three jewels I go for refuge. I confess each misdeed and non-virtue. Confess here, this word, of course, probably has some Christian baggage in terms of going to confession. If you were Catholic, if you're not Catholic, you probably also heard how, oh, we don't do that. We don't go to the priest to confess, that's silly. But nonetheless, there's this baggage of confession, the word confession. We might think, it is being judged by someone, as not good enough. No, here, confession means to see clearly, to no longer hide, to expose the unskillful ways of acting that we have become addicted to, that we have become so addicted to that we often don't even think twice. And we go ahead and create all kinds of causes of suffering. And then when those causes of suffering ripen as suffering, we're like, oh, why me? Why me? It's like, well, you ordered them, you clicked on Amazon, and so now it's being delivered very effectively, So if we don't want that, if we want to be free from that, then we have to expose this. Expose, So confess here means the misdeed and the non-virtue, see them for what they are. And when you see them for what they are, then you have to do what? You have to abandon them. It's also to put it down, drop it. Basically, shakpa in Tibetan, shakpa is drop it. Right? If you don't know, right, yet that the reason why, no matter where you go, it just stinks. So you keep moving, thinking, I'm going to get to somewhere where it no longer stinks. But as it turns out, the reason why, no matter where you go, it stinks is that either in your backpack or in your hand, right, you've been carrying around, like dog or cat turd, feces, So then no matter where you go, it's sort of like when you have stepped on, some dog poop. Right? Often, right, you walk around, you're like, God, this stinks, Where is that dog poop, And then you're like, oh, wait, let me check my shoes, Well, it's at the bottom of your shoes. Then no matter where you go, it stinks. Then you blame other people. So here, the confession means, we have to take responsibility for our suffering. See that, don't blame others, and say, okay, now I need to drop this, to confess. Then the opposite of this, not opposite as in like bad, but like to balance this, you also need to rejoice in the virtue of all beings, and particularly in the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So that next line say, I'm also mindful of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, as in we rejoice in the good that we see in others, and especially the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So one side is we want to be done with our unskillful ways of acting, and we also want to be encouraged and inspired by how others have been able to skillfully create causes of happiness, abandon causes of suffering. And recognizing that, then we say, in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly, Supreme Sangha, I go for refuge until awakening is reached. And so then the rest here is expressing bodhicitta. I want to point out this part that it says, having generated supreme awakened mind. So having, make this resolve that I'm going to train in actualizing absolute bodhicitta and relative bodhicitta. By the way, that's the topic of tonight's Lojong. Lojong is all. Training the mind, Lojong, is training in the two bodhicittas, basically. Okay? So if you have interest in learning more about that, join us tonight, 7:30. So here it says, having generated this supreme awakened mind, this bodhicitta, I will serve all sentient beings. Very big words, very vast motivation. And as I said before, let us begin with something that we can see immediately. Am I really aligning my actions, my attitude with these words that I say with my mouth? Then look at our ability to put up with inconveniences. How willing am I to be inconvenienced by someone else? Not very. Then bodhicitta is very little, very small. But small is okay, you know, it can grow. So here, very big words, you know, and delightfully engage in the supreme deeds of the bodhisattvas. Supreme deeds of the bodhisattvas are actually very hard deeds. For the benefit of all migratory beings, may I accomplish Buddhahood. And then your theme song comes on. Then you imagine, you know, like, do you remember that movie? I remember Evita, you know. Madonna was the star, right? Oh, thousands of people cheering your name, you know, and you beam and you smile and you think, you know, that is becoming Buddha. Then you think, you know, oh, so great, you know, but no, you know, it's often very unglamorous work. Very unglamorous work. But that is Bodhisattva path. Yeah. So that's the first two sections that we chanted. Yeah. Any quick questions of what you just heard? Give me a chance to sip a little bit of waking up energy. Sometimes the nectar of deathlessness, aka coffee. And sometimes this deathlessness is a burden, you know, when you want to go to sleep. You're like, let me die already. Samsara, you know. If not, page 3, yeah. So let's start with page 3. You can listen. I'm going to go from 3 all the way to 7. So I'm going to read in English. And we have already, you should be familiar with this already. This is the part where the 7 Avalokiteshvaras appear. The central one surrounded by 6. So 1 in front at 12 o'clock, 1 at the next one, 2 o'clock, the next one, 4 o'clock, the next one, 6 o'clock, the next one, 8 o'clock, the next one, 10 o'clock. And they are all, you know, facing the central one. Then in each of this, there's this description. Basically, they all, you know, to help you, in case you have not seen the pattern here. So how the 6 is different then would be, first thing is their color is slightly different, except that there are 2 that are white as in crystal colored. Yeah, it's more like with no color, more so than white, so to say, no color, like crystal, like glass. It's the central one and the one in front. So color is different. Then what's held in the hands, all 7, basically the 2 first hands are held in the heart. Then the left hand, they all hold lotus. Yeah, lotus here is a symbol of the wisdom mind, the all-knowing wisdom mind. Lotus is the symbol of all-knowing wisdom mind. Then what's held in the right hand is the symbol of love and compassion, actually. Again, then the lotus is a symbol of absolute bodhicitta. Then what's held on the right hand And each of the 7 would hold something different on the right hand. Those are symbols of love and compassion, which is relative bodhicitta. Relative bodhicitta. So the central one holds a mala. So that mala, this prayer beads, right? Continuously, bead after bead after bead. This is like the endless, incessant, in a good way, uninterruptedly, love and compassion continues, one following the other, without stop, without beginning, without end. Such is the love and compassion of the Buddhas. Then the Avalokiteshvara that appears in the God realm, which is right in front of you, in the right hand, it says, it holds a string instrument called a veena. So the string instrument is basically music to wake up those in the God realms. Those in the God realms are basically beings that are so full of themselves, so sure of their happiness, that they don't notice any suffering anywhere, but in a superficial way. Because before long, even if it seems a long time, but before long, a day will come where impermanence becomes so clear and so powerful that even as powerful gods, they have no way to stop it. And then dying and death happens. And then you fall back into lower states of being, and then tremendous suffering. So that describes the God realms, but that also describes many of us. In fact, these 6 realms, we can see within ourselves. We can see around us these 6 realms. You don't have to go to some realm, teleport, with some supernatural powers. You just look, open your eyes big enough. You will see throughout a day, we cycle in and out of the 6 realms. So the veena, the music now, is a symbol of how Avalokiteshvara will use, music, which is what the gods are so obsessed with, as a way to waking up the gods. So all the different things held on the right hand, the second right hand of these Avalokiteshvaras, they are particular to the way the confusion of that realm is described, and then that instrument held is a antidote to that particular type of confusion. So like in the hell realms, for example, right? The Avalokiteshvara in the 10 o'clock position, black in color, radiating light, but black in color. In his hands is held, it says, fire, right? And water. Why? Because in the description of the hells, Buddha talked about the 8 cold hells and the 8 hot hells. So most spiritual religious traditions, at best, they have hells that are very hot. But the Buddhists not only have hot hells, they also have cold hells. So again, you can see how we sometimes in our lives, we have experienced both the hot hells and the cold hells. To be so cold and lifeless, either ourselves or ourselves being given that treatment, is hellish. Those are the cold hells. The hot hells is when we get so engrossed and tortured by resentment, by anger, that we want to lash out and everything and anything. Hot hells. So there, Avalokiteshvara has water and fire. For those in the cold hells, he will provide fire, warmth. For those in the hot hells, he will provide cooling, coolness. So what's described in the hands is basically the antidote, the particular way in which relative bodhicitta has to manifest based on circumstance. So that's why this compassion is sometimes called skillful means, skillful methods, appropriate ways to reach out to relieve suffering. So now listen as I read this section. Listen and meditate if you can. Follow the visualization. I am the great compassionate one, white in color, with one face and four arms, with palms together and holding mala and lotus, legs crossed, adorned with jewels and silks, seated on the lotus and moon seat. Om Mani Padme Hum. Visualize white-colored Lord of the world of the God realm, with one face, four arms, palms together, holding a veena and a lotus, seated cross-legged on the moon. Om Swaha. Visualize green-colored Lord of the world of the demigod realm, with one face, four arms, palms together, holding sword and armor and a lotus, seated cross-legged on the moon. Om Ma Swaha. Visualize multicolored Lord of the world of the human realm, with one face, four arms, palms together, holding a mala and a lotus, seated cross-legged on the moon. Om Ni Swaha. Visualize smoke-colored Lord of the world of the animal realm, with one face, four arms, palms together, holding a scripture and a lotus, seated cross-legged on the moon. Om Pad Swaha. Visualize red-colored Lord of the world of the Preta realm, with one face, four arms, palms together, holding a chess box and a lotus, seated cross-legged on the moon. Om Me Swaha. Finally, visualize black-colored Lord of the world of the Hell realm, with one face, four arms, palms together, holding fire and water and a lotus, seated cross-legged on the moon. Om Hung Swaha. Rani tuje chimpuni karbo selchi chashi pa tyoja chengwa pema zin kyudung rana dargi gen pema dawe den la shu om ne peme hong la ye jikden wangchu kar shelchi chashi tyoja da piwan pema dawe den Kyumo chungi shukpar sam om swaha lamin jikten wangchuk chang sha jik chashi terja dang go zon pema dawe den kyumo chungi shukpar sam om ma swaha mi jikten wangchuk chang sha jik chashi terja dang trengwa pema dawe den Kyumo chungi zukpara sam om ni swaha dundro jingden wanchuk du shachik chashi teojar da puti pema dawe den kyumo chungi zukpara sham sam om perde swaha ida jingden wanchuk ma shachik chashi teojar da drombo pema dawe den Kyumo chungi zukpara sam om me swaha nyawe jikden wangchuk na xiao chi jiangxi teo jar da me chu pema chang na zin kyumo chungi zukpara sam om hong swaha. Then, in the heart center of the principal deity among the seven great compassionate ones is a 3-syllable on the moon seat, surrounded by the 6 syllables. In the heart center of the surrounding 6 Avalokiteshvaras are their respective seed syllables, such as Om, Ma, Ni, and so forth. and also surrounded by the 6 syllables. Dedara tuje champu tungi tsobo tukara dawe den la shri la ige tugi korwa kodugi tukara omso indra re la idrugi korwa ranju. Now again, remember that the central Avalokiteshvara is absolute bodhicitta. The other 6 is relative bodhicitta. Absolute bodhicitta is the wisdom mind that perceives emptiness. Relative bodhicitta is the mind of love and compassion that relieves the suffering of all beings. To practice Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of love and compassion, is to actualize both absolute and relative bodhicitta. While there are many levels of using this visualization during the mantra recitation, I recommend that for now, use this mantra visualization and repetition in a way that involves the use of breath as you recite the first Om Mani Padme Hum in your mind. You breathe in. And as you recite Om Mani Padme Hum second time, you breathe out. And in this way, your breath will be regulated by the 6-syllable mantra, the Mani mantra, the wish-fulfilling mantra. So to help you get familiar with this, now I'm going to chant the mantra using a very old tune, a melody that is used at the Drigung Til Monastery in their annual Mani Mantra retreat. This tune is often used in the evening, but we're going to use it here because it's a tune that involves 2 cycles of 2 Om Mani Padme Hum. So very helpful in this particular method that I'm suggesting that you train in, which is breathe in Om Mani Padme Hum, breathe out Om Mani Padme Hum, or breathe in Om Mani Padme Hum Hri, breathe out Om Mani Padme Hum Hri. Hri is the syllable, the seed syllable. So sometimes Hri is included in the recitation and sometimes not. It doesn't really matter that much. As you breathe in, think that Om Mani Padme Hum is purifying breath and entering you through breath, going into your body and mind completely, purifying body and mind, cleaning body and mind out. And then as the breath goes out, don't think of it as dirty air being released into space, but rather as it goes out, now it's being blessed by Om Mani Padme Hum, turning into the activities of relative bodhicitta, going in all directions, blessing all sentient beings, all mother sentient beings that have been kind to us as our mothers. Now we relieve their suffering by breathing out. You will notice that with breath, as you breathe in, there's a surge of energy. That surge of energy, try to direct it to developing clarity and clear seeing. And as you breathe out, you will notice that when breath goes out of you, you will feel very relaxed and spacious. And then let that spaciousness help you develop a spacious heart that can contain all the sufferings in the world, so that no suffering is going to do you in. No suffering is going to tank you, so to say. No suffering is going to make you give up. No difficulty is going to make you disheartened. So true compassion is not emotional. True compassion is to be unmoving in the midst of all the suffering. Unmoving so that you can actually be helpful. If you're going to be a doctor, and in this case, the supreme physician, you cannot let emotionality and feelings take over your ability to see clearly and to provide the help and the stability that is needed in the midst of suffering and difficulties. Om Mani Padme Hum Ri 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 Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme Hum Hri. 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 For us especially, in the times that we live in, and I don't mean just right now, the last 10, 20 years, so much of what's out there is designed to stir us up. It's designed to trigger, to keep triggering us. And whether to trigger us and get us all excited, angry, outraged, suspicion. It's triggering us. And the fact that we respond to this trigger, that is, like biologically, that is the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight. It gets us to, bulk up, right? Becoming bigger to fight or to run, or more lean to run. Bigger to fight, more lean to run, fight or flight. That sympathetic nervous system. Both from a biological point of view, right? The sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the at rest and at ease, is the other, the parasympathetic nervous system. In a way, right? These two have their role to play. If the sympathetic nervous system wasn't working so well, then today the human race won't be around. So we've been successful in part because our sympathetic nervous system of our ancestors was effective in adapting to all the threats, right? But I think we have reached a point where the sympathetic nervous system is constantly being activated, so that we are in constant state of stress. Then our bodies, intake of like sugar and things like that, again, 100 years ago, these things that we need for nutrition in the body, but in the right proportion. But now, so easily available, the things that our body need, but over available, so also causes like the body to be in the state of inflamed, inflammation. Inflammation, right? Also in ordinary working is that which is going to fight off an enemy. So it's part of the sympathetic nervous system, so to say. I'm not a medical doctor by any means, and my knowledge of science is very limited, but the limited that I read, I see this correlation, that we have inflammation is a good thing, when it's functioning in a balanced way. right? Is more blood is going somewhere, right? To let it heal faster. But a constant state of inflammation inside and outside is when it has gone haywire. Then even like, I don't know how many, maybe you all know this all this while, but I constantly surprise myself by reminded, like, when people, like COVID-19, a good example, like literally where people are dying, it's not so much the virus is killing you. It's the presence of the virus that kicks in your immune system going overload. And your overload immune system is what finally does you in. Now, I'm not claiming, right, it's exactly the same, but there has to be a relationship to how triggered we are at all times. Yeah, how triggered we are constantly. How we have become so afraid of the enemy that at the first sight of the enemy, let's blow up everything. Because media has done it for us. Because the internet has done it for us. So here is a suggestion I have for you. And I will try to practice it myself. And I know I will fail. But I will promise to do better. And you please do that too. Time yourself how much time you spend on social media or on news. If you spend 5 minutes on social media, you have to do 5 minutes of Om Mani Padme Hum. Breathe in, breathe out. In, out. If you spend 20 minutes watching news, then you need to do 20 minutes. In, out, in, out. Deal? I'm not even asking you to do twice the amount, just to equalize things a little. So you say, but we need to know what's going on. The world is going to hell. Yes. Okay, good. You need to know what's going on. So then it will get your sympathetic nervous system working. You will bulk up and fight the good fight. But know that it is about balance. So you also need to have your parasympathetic nervous system kick in as well. I can even say, like the sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system, at the root of that, now this is when it might sound like, this is quack science, okay? So I will disclaim, this is not about science, but in the context of our practice, the sympathetic nervous system is the relative bodhicitta. When it's functioning right and when it's completely purified, that is how relative bodhicitta is supposed to work. Love and compassion actively intervening, actively turning up in whatever means necessary to relieve suffering. The parasympathetic nervous system, when fully purified, fully realized, is absolute bodhicitta. The wisdom that provides that big space so that no matter what suffering turns up, no problem. Not moved, not shaken, not bent out of shape, not hysterical, emotional. It's like nothing changes. These two to develop in harmony. Together now, let's say the praise at the end. I promise you on Saturday, I will comment on the praise, because the praise, as I mentioned last time, is actually instructions on how to do the completion stage practice. Up until now is generation stage practice. Generation stage practice is relative bodhicitta. Completion stage practice is ultimate bodhicitta. It's just beautiful, yeah, the way this is laid out. Yeah. And it's in all Vajrayana sadhanas, sometimes more explicit, sometimes less explicit. In this case, very nicely laid out. So the praise gives you some idea of what the nature of reality is, what the nature of your mind is. So superficially, it takes on the form of praising Avalokiteshvara. But indirectly, it's introducing to us the nature of our minds. So that at the very end, when we do the dissolution, we have something to work with. The main way to do the completion stage practice, the most effective one, is when we have been introduced to the nature of mind. But of course, that doesn't just happen accidentally. You need to create the causes for it. So now we create the causes of it by sort of being introduced to it indirectly. So let it kind of go into our system bit by bit. Just because there's good stuff to go into the system, it doesn't mean that we have the ability to absorb yet. So we let it slowly, slowly kind of grow. So this is what this praise really is about, is giving us some hints as to what the nature of our minds and therefore the nature of all reality is. Yeah, so let's do this together. Shri, in the realm of the great compassionate one, where good and bad are non-dual, appearances are without true existence, existing only in the manner of illusions. Within a state that is naturally pristine and without fixations, is the boundless and pristine realm where attachment and aversion is self-liberated. To your realm, great compassionate one, I praise and pay homage. Om Ahong Hri Om Mani Padme Hum. Shri, the indivisibility of appearance and emptiness, the exalted body of the great compassionate one. This empty nature of appearances is like the reflections of the moon on water. Within this great ocean of the empty nature of appearances is the boundless and pristine exalted body of self-liberated empty appearances. To your exalted body, great compassionate one, I praise and pay homage. Om Ahong Hri Om Mani Padme Hum. Shri, the indivisibility of sound and emptiness, the exalted voice of the great compassionate one. This empty nature of sounds is the sound of echoes. Within this great ocean of empty nature of sounds is the boundless and pristine exalted voice of self-liberated empty sounds. To your exalted voice, great compassionate one, I praise and pay homage. Om Ahong Hri Om Mani Padme Hum. Shri, the indivisibility of clarity and emptiness, the exalted mind of the great compassionate one. This empty nature of clarity is like the color of rainbows. Within this great ocean of the empty nature of clarity is the boundless and pristine exalted mind of self-liberated empty clarity. To your exalted mind, great compassionate one, I praise and pay homage. Om Ahong Hri Om Mani Padme Hum. Shri, the molten lava ground is the realm of the great compassionate one. The bull-headed Ava is the exalted form of the great compassionate one. Kill, kill, strike, strike are the sounds of the 6 syllables. Arrows, spears, and swords are the various offering materials. In the boundless and pristine expanse where happiness and suffering are self-liberated, to you, the great compassionate one of existence and appearances, I praise and pay homage. Om Ahong Hri Om Mani Padme Hum. Now just let the visualization of the 7 Avalokiteshvaras all dissolve. Naturally release that visualization. No need to hold on to them anymore, but maintain presence of mind. Hold your awareness without any object. Just hold your awareness. Let this ordinary mind rest in itself. The ordinary mind, which is the Buddha mind. No elaborations, no additions needed, no additives, no improvements. Just as it is, naked, pristine. Gewa magen drudu kunlangu. Together, I dedicate this merit to all my old mother sentient beings of the six realms. By this merit, may I achieve the all-knowing state. May all who wander on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating enemies of faults and delusions. Through this accumulation of precious merit dedicated to all migratory beings, may they never be separated from the sublime Dharma. By myself and others perfectly realizing the two benefits, may the melodious beat of the Dharma drum beautify this world. May the spread of Buddha's doctrine ever increase. May all sentient beings be blissful and happy. May they practice the Dharma through the day and night. May the two benefits of self and others be spontaneously accomplished. In all lifetimes, may I never be separated from the perfect gurus, but enjoy the richness of the glorious Dharma. Having thoroughly perfected the exalted qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. So a reminder, the last session for this program and to close out our Saka Dawa special programming from Urban Dharma, from out of my living room that has been turned into the studio. It will be this Saturday instead of Sunday. The original announcement says that it will be on Sunday, but because of a scheduling conflict, I need to do another class, a one-time talk for some friends. So our last session for this compassion meditation is going to be on this Saturday. So again, a reminder, right? If you go to YouTube to Drikung Dharma Kirti, circle YouTube, Drikung Dharma Kirti. Kirti is spelled K-I-R-T-I, K-I-R-T-I, Drikung, D-R-I-K-U-N-G, Drikung Dharma Kirti circle. On YouTube, you can look for the playlist, which is the Avalokiteshvara playlist. Then all 6 sessions, by the time we finish on Saturday, all 6 sessions will be available there for you to review. I feel good with this 6th session. I think you can go back again and again and listen to them. And, of course, if there's anyone else that you think might benefit from this, you can share with them. Some of you might have the question of like, oh, do they need a special empowerment, special transmission? Of course, it's always good when you get the opportunity to formally enter the practice by receiving the empowerment and the transmission and all of that. But the practice of Avalokiteshvara in this form, in this way, does not absolutely require that. Important is really to do it with understanding and to do it with the attitude and the heart that, in the future, when the opportunity arrives for me to more formally enter this practice by receiving the empowerment and the proper reading transmissions and all that, then, of course, you will happily do it. Yeah. Some of you maybe had the opportunity to receive the Avalokiteshvara empowerment from His Holiness the Dalai Lama virtually about maybe two weeks ago, and close to the full moon day of Saka Dawa. His Holiness, for the first time historically, did a virtual empowerment. Of course, it was controversial to some people, but it's okay, you know. I don't know. We don't need to get into that sort of stuff. Most important is to check our own motivation, check our own kind of attitude. Why are we doing this? For what purpose? And then, of course, you know, whenever opportunity arises for us to more formally enter the practice, then it's always good to do that. Yeah. So otherwise, maybe I will see some of you this evening for Lojong. If not, then I'll see you on Saturday. So you have a good day, you have a good evening. Some of you are on the other side of the world getting ready to rest. As you're getting ready to rest, you know, this breath is so amazing, you know. So as you go to sleep, you know, also Om Mani Padme Hum, breathe in, Om Mani Padme Hum, breathe out. And if you pay attention, you know, I actually kind of timed it. The Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. The second is a little bit longer than the first. So if you really let that melody regulate your breath, that means your in-breath is going a little bit faster than your out-breath. But generally, both are going in about the same, slow. But between the two, the in-breath and the out-breath is slower. So again, you see how this can be designed to, in our circumstance, you know, help us to calm down the sympathetic nervous system. Because when you breathe in, you know, that actually is a burst of energy. Your blood pressure actually relative to the out breath goes up a little bit. Your heartbeat also increase a little bit. And then as you breathe out, then your blood pressure also goes down and your heartbeat also relaxes a bit. And hopefully the inflammation also goes down a bit. So especially when you're trying to relax and sleep, you know, this tune, you know, that makes the out breath a little bit longer, actually in a very subtle way, but over time, well, will have great effect in helping you to calm and relax. So relax the mind, have a good day, have a good night.
Thank you. Hasta pronto.
Thank you.